Shalom Aleichem and welcome back everyone as we are here and we're learning Sefer Devarim in this week being Parashat Ekev. I want to start off with a story, and this story will take us to a very important lesson, Be'ezrat Hashem. It's a Hasidic story and it has to do with the founder of Hasidism, the Baal Shem Tov, Zecher Tzadik Lebracha. The Baal Shem Tov and his students, after prayers Friday night, were exiting the synagogue and they saw a Jew with a face that was shining. And the students turned to the Baal Shem Tov and said, "We know this Jew to be a simple Jew. Why does he have this special shine of a very holy Jew? What is about him?" So the Baal Shem Tov said something very important, something we have to take to life. This is not the lesson I'm getting to, but another important lesson. He says, let's go and find out. You don't know something? You have to research it. You have to find out the answer. You don't just leave it. You have to do as much as you can. So he says to the students, let's go and see what he does. So they follow this man and they see him entering into this small little hut, broken down. And they see him through the window. He comes home and he's greeting his wife and he says, Shabbat Shalom. And he starts, Shalom Aleichem. And they're looking around in the house, and the house is almost no furniture. The place is old. Looks like it's seen better days. And he finishes singing Shalom Aleichem, he sings Eshet Hayel, and then he turns to his wife and he tells his wife, "My Eshet Hayel, please bring the special Shabbat wine." And she says, "Yes, honey." And she runs to the kitchen and she comes back with 2 loaves of coarse dark bread. He washes his hands, says the bracha, and says Kiddush on bread. He eats the bread and he tells his wife, "My dear wife, I've never tasted such beautiful, exquisite wine. Thank you for this amazing wine." And now he says to his Eshet Hayel, he says, "I'm ready for the fish." She says, "Yes, honey," runs to the kitchen, and she comes back with a small portion of beans. He licks his lips and he says, "Ah, what beautiful fish," and he starts to eat it. He eats those beans and he says to his wife, "This is the most tastiest fish I've ever tasted. Thank you." He sings a song for Shabbat and he tells his wife, "Honey, I'm ready for the soup. And she says, "Yes." She runs to the kitchen and she comes back with another dish of beans, puts it in front of him, and he says, "Wow, this is the most amazing soup I've ever seen." He starts to eat it. He compliments his wife for the amazing soup she made, sings another Shabbat song, and he says, "Now I'm ready for the main meal, for the main course, the roast meat and the tzimis, bring it in." And she says, "Yes." And she runs and she brings back another plate of beans. Some people can relate, right? And he starts to eat the beans. And he says, "The most wonderful, amazing, delicious roast meat and tzimis I've ever had." And the students with the Baal Shem Tov peeking through the window, I'm not making heads and tails from this. So the students tell the Baal Shem Tov, "You have to explain what's going on." The Baal Shem Tov said, it says in our pasuk, in our parasha, that Hashem fed us the manna in the midbar. What was the man? What was the manna? Coriander seed. And what happened?
Imagination.
Whatever you imagine, that's what it tastes like. This man is so kadosh, is so holy, that he was able to, anything he eats, it's like the man in his mouth. He's able to taste whatever he wants based on it being the man. I understand the Baal Shem Tov, I think, is saying that we can still tap into the power of the mun today. But how does one do that? How did this man be able to tap into the power of the mun? How can we tap into the power of the mun that we can put beans in our mouth and say this is the most delicious burger I've ever eaten? You don't have to pay $60 for it. Okay? You can say the most delicious burger I've ever eaten. How could a person tap into that? Possibly, we can answer that it's love. Say, love conquers all, right? Love not only conquers all, love builds a relationship. When you have a love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you realize that Hashem loves you, you realize everything Hashem does for you is the best. And everything you get is amazing. Then how can you be upset? You know, they say that a Jew, every morning, at least for those who drink coffee, take a cup of very hot water. They put in bitter coffee, sweet sugar, and cold milk. So you have hot and cold, sweet and bitter.
Black and white.
Black and white. And then what do you say? Shahako Yabidvaro. Everything was created through Hashem. Which means if you realize that the hot and the cold and the sweet and the bitter and the black and the white is all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then of course you'll be full of blessings. And of course you'll be full of love. If we truly love those that we say we love, then we can never see them wrong. And even if they did something wrong, and we know it's wrong, we can always tell them nicely, it's done this way. That's when there's love. Just like Kadosh Baruch Hu loves us, and He gives us a little tap from time to time, tell us change there, change that. What we call a love tap. But it's done with love. And when you get the love, and you receive the love, and you give the love, then of course you can eat a dish of beans, and you can taste the most delicious food. Because it comes from Hashem, who gives it to us with love. And this, Abutai, is a very important lesson to take with us for life. Because there's a lot of times in life where it's hot, and a lot of times in life it's cold. And a lot of times in life it's bitter and it's sweet. And the people in the Midbar, they had the money and they complained. Because they lacked the love for what they were getting. Ask people how your summer is going. And then you ask in the winter, how was it? Too cold, too cold. Oh, this, every time they complain. They're never happy. Some people just, they love to complain. There was this Jew, he was in a hospital. State of the art, best hospital in the world. And he demanded a transfer to a hospital on the Lower East Side. He finally gets to the hospital and the doctors are taking over. He says, I don't understand, why did you come to this hospital? What was wrong with the other hospital? Were the doctors no good? Doctors were the best. Was the food no good? Food was the best. Were the nurses no good? They were angels. So what was wrong? So the patient says, I had nothing to complain about there. I'm here now, I have everything to complain about. Some people just complain. But if they realize that it all comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it all comes with love, then what's there to complain about? There's nothing to complain about. We have to look, accept, and understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us. He's giving us, He feeds us for years and years. Yes, and the Midbar was with real mun, but the mun still exists. And we have to tap into that power. Abotai, let's move on to our second lesson from this week's Parsha. Perek Yud Aleph, Pasuk Yud Bet. It's a famous pasuk. I'm going to read it now over here. Perek Yud Aleph, Pasuk Yud Bet. Am I not following this right? Hold on a second. Okay, maybe they putting it down wrong. This week's parsha we have where it says Hashem's eyes. Anyone know what pasuk that is? Enei Hashem. Yeah, which you know which year that is?
It's in the beginning.
In the beginning. Anyone know where in the beginning? You'll find it. You'll tell me.
In the morning, today in the
Yeah.
morning.
You read it this morning? Okay.
First pasuk in the beginning, in the middle.
I don't know why it says Parashat Aleph. I'm looking at Parashat Aleph. Okay. So, Enei Hashem, Eretz Asher Hashem Lekecha, Doresh Ota Tamid. Enei Hashem Lekecha. Where is it?
Yud Bet.
Yud Bet. Okay. So where are we? Yud Aleph, Yud Bet. Eretz Asher Hashem Lekecha, Doresh Ota Tamid. Enei Hashem Lekecha Ba. Constantly Hashem's eyes are on it. Mereshit Hashana. From the beginning of the year, Va'ad Achrit Shana, until the end year. Okay. First of all, what does this mean that Enei Hashem Elokecha Ba? That Hashem's eyes are on it. You know, Hashem, eyes are on it, means that Hashem's looking at it closely. Hashem's looking at Eretz Yisrael closely. You don't have to look very far. Everywhere in the world, they're always talking about Israel. You can't even pass through JFK without someone telling you about the Palestinians, right? You have the UN, which is supposed to be talking about the whole world, and they only talk about Israel there. Smallest country in the world. It's like smaller than the size of the state of Rhode Island. And it is always, of all the resolutions, 90% of them are about Israel. Enei Hashem. That's the world's eyes. But why is Hashem's eyes, and why are the world's eyes on us all the time? There's a story that happened with Rav Eli Lopian, Zechat Tzadik Libracha. His family owned a chicken. And one morning during breakfast, the chicken made its way into the kitchen, climbed up onto the table and started knocking things off. The mother of the house took the chicken, took him back outside and put him in the chicken coop. And Rav Eli Lopian was very surprised. He said to his mother, if I did that, you would scream, yell, and patch me and give me what I deserve. If I climbed up on the table and knocked things out. And here the chicken came, and made a whole scene, and nothing happened to him. Favoritism, right? They're being picked on. So the mother said, I don't expect anything from a chicken. But you're a Jewish boy with a good brain. I expect a lot from you. You know, the rest of the world, no one even looks at what's going on. They're committing whatever they're committing, all these different nonsenses and all these different crimes, right? But everyone looks at the Jew. Why? Because the Jew, they know, has a brain on his head, right? Everybody's looking, but we have a special responsibility. Hashem says, you are the chosen nation. You are the people who I'm looking at. And they, Hashem, are on us, Talmud, because we are not a chicken. We're not a chicken. Now, that explains the first part of the pasuk. The last part of the pasuk has another interesting take. When is Hashem's eyes on us? Mereshit Hashana. Hey, Idiyah, meaning the beginning of the year, and ends off the pasuk Va'ad Aharit Shana. No hey. You should make it parallel. Va'ad Aharit Hashana. The end of the year.
At the same time. The beginning of the end.
A circle. It should be parallel. Mereshit Hashana ad Acharit Hashana. So famously, the Satmar Rebbe, Zechat Tzadik Libracha, explained as follows. He says, why is the beginning of the year called the year and the end of the year called year? Because every new year, every Rosh Hashanah, people are mikabel things and say, this is the year. This is the year I'm not missing minyan. This is the year I'm going to increase learning. This is the year I'm going to do this. This is the year I'll be nice to my wife. This is the year I'm going to learn Chot Shabbat. This is the year I'm going to... Then he puts the year. And comes the end of the year, and nothing happened. It's just another year. It's not the year. It wasn't the year that he thought this year was going to be. It's no longer Hashanah. It becomes just the Shana. You know, a lot of people are like this. They're always in the planning stages. No, you got a havuta yet? Working on it. It's been 10 years already. You got a havuta yet? I'm working on it. You wanted to learn Mishnayot. You did it yet? I'm working on it. He's still in the planning stages. Rabotai. Yeah, just that story we said over many times. There was this Hatan. He got married. It was the night after his wedding. And he wanted to impress his father-in-law. He said, I'm going to get up early for tefillah. And he shows up to the Beit Midrash 2 o'clock in the afternoon with his talit and tefillin. So his father-in-law is there, and his father-in-law tells him, everything okay? He says, you're very proud of me. He says, what do you mean? He says, I'm coming now to shul. He says, yeah. So what's to be proud of? He said, I've been fighting with the Yetzer Hara from 6 o'clock in the morning, and I finally won. Hey, you won at 2 o'clock. What's 2 o'clock gonna help? You can't keep. You gotta do something.
Better late than never.
Yeah, better late than never. But it's gonna be late, and then it's gonna be a never. Better late than never means I'm doing it now, and now I'm late up until this point. I'm doing it. Better late than never doesn't mean I have later to do it, because you don't know what's gonna be the next minute. Ashav.
What kind of sound is this?
It's a story. It's a story. But to Mashal. But this is the idea, Rabotai. We have to get out of the staging plan staging. It was once I remember when we were kids, my father brought home this tape. I don't remember the tape. It was a tape about a Hanukkah story with the Baal Shem Tov, or some Hasidic rabbi, I don't remember. But one part of the tape I remember, part of the story I remember, was that they had a Rebbe coming to their house. So the father was very excited. So he told the kids, we're gonna make a plan, we're gonna stick to the plan. We're gonna stick to the plan. And they made a whole song about sticking to the plan. The Rebbe came, they were all singing the stick to the plan, but they never made the plan. They just knew they have to stick to the plan. There's so many people like that. They're always thinking and planning and this and that. But to do what they do. And what time the year is coming and going. It's a couple of weeks left. It doesn't mean that we can give up now and say, the year already passed. No. The fact is, even Mincha, Erev Rosh Hashanah, right before Rosh Hashanah, we say the bracha, Mevarech Hashanim. Hashem blesses the years. The year's already over. Why are you blessing last year? It's already over. No, it's not over. Every minute of every day is important. Cash in now. I saw here an interesting idea he brings in the Kedusha of Musaf, right? In the Keter that we read. We're saying, Hen ge'alti etchem acherit kereshit. Hashem will redeem us at the end like He did in the beginning. Like He redeemed us from Mitzrayim, He'll redeem us now as well. But here He wants to say, interesting idea. Hen ge'alti etchem, Hashem says, you know when I'm going to redeem you? When you're acharit kereshit, when the end of your year is like your beginning of the year. That means the whole year is like Rosh Hashanah. Agan Shior Rosh Hashanah, not Agan Shior Purim. Agan Shior Rosh Hashanah. A whole year is Rosh Hashanah, you're mikabel and you're doing things, and you're with that seriousness, then you're ready for Geula. Then you're ready for Geula Shinara.
This is only one to this.
100%. But the idea is still a true idea. Abutai, very important lessons to take with us. Let's move on to our final lesson in this week's Parsha. We have, later on, in the same parak, and this time Hashem helped me find the pasuk correctly, it says over here as follows. Ki im shamor tishmerun et kol mitzvah hazot, chapter 11, verse 22. Asher anochi mitzaver etchem la'asota. You're going to do what I command you to do. La'ahava, to love Hashem. La'ahavat Hashem Elokechem. La'lechet b'chol dirachav u'ladafkovo. And to cleave to Hashem. Okay, what does this mean? La'lechet b'chol dirachav. To walk in the path of Hashem. That's literally how you translate. La'lechet b'chol dirachav. To walk in all His ways. What does it mean to walk in all His ways? So Rashi explained to us. What does Rashi say? La'lechet b'chol dirachav. Hu rahum. Va'ata ti'eh rahum. Hashem is merciful. You also have to be merciful. Hu gomer hasadim. Va'ata gomer hasadim. That means we have to do what Hashem does. Right? We know Hashem has Yugimel Midot. It's maybe invested a good time to learn what does Yugimel Midot mean, the 13 attributes of mercy of Hashem. In fact, we know it says that Moshe Rabbeinu was instructed to do what? La'asotah, to perform the 13 Midot. Right? The Talmud Devar explains that means it's not enough to just read the Yugimel Midot. Amunai, Kel, Rahum, Hanum. No, it's not enough. you have to do them. That just as Hashem is Rahum, merciful, Hanun, and compassionate, we have to follow them. Talmud Devarah has a whole section explaining every midah of how we're supposed to do it. And the fact is, Slichot is coming. We're going to be saying the Yom Kippur over and over again. So maybe it's important for us to learn them. If anyone wants to learn them in English, they have at the end of the Yalkut Yosef in English, Yamim Noraim, they have in the back, beautifully put together, every midah and midah explaining it. Maybe one day we'll be zochet to make a class on the 13 midot, one by one, to go through them all. So we have to follow Hashem's 13 midot. The Rosh Yeshiva, Harav Reuven Gerzovsky, Zecher Tzadik Lebracha, explains, what does it mean, the word derech? Derech can mean a path, direction, but derech also means the nature of something. The nature of a shore, of an ox, is to gore, right? It's to hit, right? The derech of certain things to happen. Derech means a natural way. Says the Rosh Yeshiva, that we have to become like Hashem naturally, meaning it should be natural to us to act with compassion. It should be natural for us to act with mercifulness. Once, Harav Yerucham Lavav Zecher Tzadik Lebracha was traveling by train, and as he's entering the train, one of his gloves fall out. Without thinking, what does Rav Yerucham Levovitz do? He throws the second glove out. Why?
What are you going to do with one?
Exactly. What am I going to do with one glove? I can't do it. I'm not going to get it back. I'll throw it out to the guy who finds it, but at least have two. The door closes very fast. Unless it's natural to you, you have to think about it. And thinking about it takes time. You already missed the door. Or you're boom, that's it. It was over. It was natural to him. Rabotai, here in the Pninim Al Torah, he brings the most amazing story. There was a man that used to work in a restaurant. He used to take the bus home every day, but one day he missed the bus. He decided to walk home. It was probably California. And he was walking home, and he saw a lot of homeless people. And he sees that they're looking in the garbage cans for food. And he thinks to himself, he says, every day I work at the restaurant, we have all this leftover food, and we throw it out. Why do we do that? Maybe I'll start bringing it here. So he talks to his boss the next day, and he says to the boss, listen, you're throwing out all this food anyway, let me take it. So the boss says, listen, you can do whatever you want with it, I'm throwing it out anyway, do whatever you want with it. So this young man, he takes it, and he brings it to all the homeless people, and he gives them to eat. And they're so excited, they never eat such good food. They're eating, they're enjoying it. He brings it 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. On the third day, he sees this one lady that doesn't come to eat from him. Doesn't come to take the food that he brings. So he takes a plate and he brings it over to her. And he tells her, do you wanna eat something? I brought from the restaurant. And she said, I want to eat it, but I'll never eat from the hand of a Jew. I hate Jews. He says, but I'm not Jewish. I'm not Jewish. You can have it. She says, I swear to you that you're Jewish. He says, why would you say such a thing? It's only a Jew who would think about doing something so nice like you. Something that you're doing. And I hate Jews? I'm not eating from you. This boy was very disturbed by this. So he comes home and he tells his mom, listen, it was the weirdest thing that happened. I'm bringing food to these homeless people. And this one woman won't eat. She has such hatred for Jews. And she thinks I'm Jewish. Could you believe it? She thinks I'm Jewish. And she thinks because only Jewish people will do it, she won't eat from it. And his mother starts to cry. And she says, we never told you, but I'm a Jew. Your father is not. But that means you're a Jew too. The kid couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe it that this anti-Semite knew that he was Jewish before he was Jewish. He went up to Eretz Yisrael. He went to learn in yeshivas there, and he became a completely observant Jew today. But what's the idea? The idea of the story is that that's a Jew by nature. that even Goyim know that Jews are kind and compassionate. That they're the ones looking out for other people.
So this guy gets schar because he
No, the guy doesn't get schar. No, they don't get
She put him in the right direction.
Doesn't get schar for it. You have to have the right kavana. But that's the idea, that the Jew is the compassionate fellow. We have to realize that too about our fellow Jews. You know, it's sad sometimes. Like we walk past Jews, we don't say hi, we don't think, we don't help, we just minding our own business. You know, the American style, leave me alone. You live your life, I live my life, and everybody's just happy. You know, no. We have to be compassionate, to think about the other person. What can we do? Baruch Hashem, there are so many different gemachs today. For everything you can think about. Baby diapers, baby formula, you name it. It's all out there. Because Jews are always thinking how to help the other person. I want to end off with one last story. Sometimes we might say to ourselves, I don't know how Hashem would act in certain situations, or how Hashem is compassionate, so I don't know how to behave. You tell me to follow Hashem. I don't know what that means. I mean, I know Hashem, I know of Hashem, I dive into Hashem, I'm learning, I'm trying, I'm going to learn the Yigim Mitzvot, I'm working on it, but what do I do now? So the truth is, Baruch Hashem, we have Achachamim. Achachamim are those people who refine themselves to do this. Lelechet, bechol derachav, to walk in all of Hashem's ways. So all we have to do is to look at our Chachamim and learn from them how to behave. Rav Eli Lopian, Chasadik Levracha, he was raising funds for his yeshiva in England. And one of the English Jews was a very rich man. He gave a lot of money to yeshivot, but he was not religious at all. So Rav Eli Lopian came to him. He said, listen, I'm not really asking you for money. I really want to know why you give so much money to yeshivot. I can't put my head around it. You're not religious. You have nothing. You don't even have mezuzot on your doors. Why do you give so much money? So he says, I'll tell you the truth. My parents were very wealthy, and my parents were very religious. And I was a very rebellious boy. And my parents wanted me to learn in yeshiva. So they sent me for an exam to the Hafetz Chaim's yeshiva in Radin. And I got there and the mashgiach gave me a test. And I failed with flying colors. And the mashgiach told me I have no place in this yeshiva. I should go back home. But I told him there's no way I can get back home today. Can I stay for a day in the dormitory, just sleep one night, and then I'll head back out? And the mashgiach told me, a boy who cannot be in the dormitory for a year, cannot be there even for a night. You're going to have a bad effect on the other boys. He was bad. So he said, I'll ask the Hafetz Chaim what to do. So he asked the Hafetz Chaim, and the Hafetz Chaim came in and he said to the boy, I agree with the mashgiach, you can't stay in the dormitory. But that doesn't mean you can't come to my house. So the Hafetz Chaim took this boy to his house. He says, he took me. And he made me feel like the most important visitor in the world. He made food for me. He gave me a bed. He made the bed. And he says it was the middle of the night. And it was very cold. And I felt myself waking up from the cold. And I heard my door of the room open. And I heard the Hafetz Chaim talking. He said to himself, Oi, it's too cold in here. What will I do? This little boy is sleeping and he's so cold. And the next second, I see the Hafetz Chaim taking off his jacket that he was wearing. And he tucks me in. And he makes sure I'm warm and he walks out. And he did this act. And I'm sure it wasn't his most spiritual act he ever did. But this little act gives me warmth till today. And every time I see an old rabbi, it reminds me of the Hafetz Chaim. And I open my wallet and my checkbooks to them. Abutai, we have no idea how our actions make a difference in someone else's life. We, Baruch Hashem, have examples. There's the Hafetz Chaim, you have so many examples out there. It's incumbent upon us. If a person really wants to learn something tonight, if you didn't do it till then, if you have some time, if you have access to YouTube, if you don't have better, don't even go on it, but if you want, look at Rabbi Trenk. Rabbi Trenk. There's like a historical type of video, 20 minutes of his students talking about Rabbi Trenk and his wife talking about him, how he behaved.
Oh, I know.
Watch that. And yeah. Kid hit him 6 times. He wouldn't call the police. Just watch that. It changes you who you are. Watch Rav Pam. You can find it online as well. Rav Pam, a video about him for 30 minutes of his students talking about. You hear the stories of the way these Gedolim acted. You can't remain the same when you hear them. Your life will change. And we also should be Zocha, the Leche B'chol Derachav, to walk in all the paths of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So to round up and review our 3 lessons from this week's Parsha. Lesson number 1, we still can tap into the power of the Mun via love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, love to others, love from others. Second lesson was that Hashem's eyes are always on Klal Yisrael because He could be on Klal Yisrael because we are roy to be looking at us. We're not a chicken. B, we're Am Segula, treasured nation. B, we have to make sure our year is a real the year, and we keep to it. We keep to our planning. We don't keep planning and not doing. We plan and do. And then you have to reevaluate, plan again, do again, over and over again. Then, and our final lesson, the lesson was to follow Hashem's paths and Hashem's ways. Just as Hashem is full of Rahmanut, so too we should be. We should be Zocha to see the Gula Shalema. We should be Zocha to a good Chodesh Elul that's coming up very soon. We should have a complete Mechila, Slicha V'Chapora, Bezos Hashem. Zocha to an amazing Rosh Hashanah, amazing Yom Kippur. We should be Zocha to many, many great things. Shabbat Shalom, Lekulam.